Welcome to Shit That's Keeping You Broke as a Creative Professional, the series where I talk to the younger version of myself. The version of myself who didn't know shit, who was naive, and who suffered needlessly. Making money as a photographer is hard, and the first couple of years of my career, I honestly don't know how I survived. But I have fucked up a lot, and hopefully there's value enough in that for you to avoid much of the same fate. So let's get started. Picture this scenario. I don't want you to get defensive. I don't want you to lie to yourself. We've all done this. You're doom scrolling through Instagram, causing all sorts of irreparable damage to your emotions, and you come across another photographer whose work you find offensive. You think it's trash, and all you can do is sit there and wonder, how does this guy get work? Why is this guy getting jobs that I'm better qualified for? It's a horrible way to think, but let's break it down. First of all, you don't really know why someone's style might resonate with someone, and you will drive yourself crazy trying to figure it out. So just throw that out the window. Let's assume, for the sake of this argument, that your work is objectively better. No question. Guess what? It still doesn't matter. The quality of your work is the least important variable when it comes to getting hired as a professional photographer. That is not an excuse to suck at photography. You should absolutely still try to be the best photographer that you can. I'm just telling you that at the end of the day, it doesn't make a difference when you're going against other people who are just as good, if not better. It's never been a more affluent time of image creators. There's just no shortage of top talent. So I'm sorry to break it to you, but focusing only on your craft is a recipe for poverty. If you just want to do this as a hobby, no problem. But when I was younger, that is all I cared about. I just focused on gear, lenses, lighting, getting better as a photographer. And even though I did improve my craft pretty quickly, though when I look back in those days of my photos, I kind of cringe because they still suck. Relatively speaking, I was improving, but I wasn't making any more money. I was still struggling. And I found myself at the mercy of third parties who were better at sales and marketing and who would just outsource or subcontract me to do the actual work. And that's a horrible position to be in because you don't have the benefits of employment and you don't have the benefits of being a true entrepreneur working for yourself. You don't make as much money and you have very little creative control. And honestly, like you're just a hired monkey pushing a button. You don't want to be in that position. So if I were to talk to my younger self, I would make it very clear up front that the most important thing, the most important variable when it comes to this industry, relationships matter. Developing, curating, protecting them, that's everything. You can fall behind on everything else, but if you have good relationships, if you establish yourself as someone who is liked, who is known, and who is trusted, you will go far. Because I promise you, there are many photographers out there. You are not imagining things. There are many photographers out there who suck. You're better than them, but they are taking your lunch money. They are dragging you out because they're better people persons. Better people. They are better with people than you are. And I hate to admit that as someone who has spent his whole life struggling with social anxiety, being shy, not wanting to talk to people, being more comfortable, lost in my own imagination, in my own creativity. It kills me. Absolutely kills me to admit it. But it's the truth. People work with who they like, who they know, and who they trust. And I know that that is some crunchy granola shit that is written in every self-help book about business and winning friends and influencing people, but it's the truth. Life is like politics. The winner is rarely the most qualified person, the person with the most experience. It often just comes down to who would you rather have a beer with? So we got that out of the way. Let's talk about certain things that are holding you back. It's very rare for someone to be good at both creating art and selling it. They are two very distinct skill sets, and it's a rare unicorn of a human being who can do both well. Usually you got to develop one. In my case, it's always been easier to get better at the technical craft, and I've struggled my whole life to be better at the other part. It is easier for me now to be this way than it was before, but it's never going to be the thing that I'm best at. I still struggle with it to this day, and there are days that I still wake up and I just don't want to do it. I don't want to deal with people and their bullshit. I don't want to talk to anyone, and I get in my feelings about it, and you know what? I get over it. And if I can get over it, you can get over it, because I am the most socially awkward person that I know. If I can do it, you probably can do it. And that's good news. That should make you feel good. That should give you confidence, because the truth is that most photographers will never get this right. So many of them will focus on the wrong things for their whole career, and they'll give up. They'll abandon it. They'll fizzle out. So you don't have to be the best at building relationships. You just have to be a little bit better than everyone else. And that's a very low bar. So that's encouraging. Okay, great. I get it, Christian. We're all socially awkward morons. Like, what do we do about it? Okay, here's what you do. First thing you got to do is you got to change your mindset. And I know that is so much easier said than done. Trust me, I live with it. I struggle with it every single day. We are designed, bred, evolved to live in small communities of collaboration, whether it's building shelter, hunting for food, collecting berries, taking care of the children. The individual who lives on an island by himself has traditionally, for most of human history, died out, got stomped out by a woolly mammoth, eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, froze to death. Human beings just don't do well in isolation. But the nature of our work is very isolating. Photography is a very lonely craft. We spend a lot of time alone in our studios and our home offices. Unless we're actually shooting with clients, it's a very lonely existence. And when you do that long enough, you miss out on certain things. You kind of tend to live in a cave. And if you multiply that with a personality like mine, maybe like yours, that is naturally inclined to be introverted, to avoid people, I think we miss out on a lot of things that the rest of the world takes for granted. So, for example, when I knew that I was done ruining my life with smoking weed and playing Call of Duty, and I knew I wanted to make something of myself, I was self-aware enough to know that I did not want to work for someone else. I did not want to be someone's employee, because I hate authority. I don't like talking to people. I don't like getting along. Kumbaya, all that shit. I don't like being told where to be, how to dress, how to do things. And if I think my way of doing things is better than yours, I'm going to do it my way. None of that is a recipe for success in corporate America, because corporate America is all about collaboration, being agreeable, and, promotions, salary increases. They go to the type A people. They go to the people who work well with others, not necessarily the skilled people. And, our profession is kind of a mirror like that. It's the same way. I didn't realize that. So because I have such limited experience working in corporate America, I did not develop the natural tolerance of other people to get along with them, or how to navigate the politics of an office environment. And those are the type of skills that translate well into entrepreneurship, because those people understand right away the importance of building relationships. And when you do it for as long as I have, I'm 38 years old, and I've spent most of my life living like a curmudgeon, like a hermit, you got a lot to make up for. Am I a total misanthrope? No, I do have some friends. I'm not a total Howard Hughes type of person, but the truth is that I've always preferred my own company, my own imagination, my own creativity. So let's circle back. How do we fix this? Well, I'm not telling you to be something that you're not. I sure as shit am not. If you are a little eccentric, that's fine. Now, if you are a total asshole, a total psychopath, like just unbearable to work with, that is totally different. And that is something that, well, you got bigger problems. And I hope that most of us are self-aware enough to know the difference between someone who's just insufferable and unpleasant and someone who's just a little weird and eccentric. I think most of us fall into the latter category. And I think most of us are capable of being good people to be around, fun people to be around on a commercial set. And that's what it comes down to. You have to realize that when people hire photographers, they are taking a risk. If they are a wedding couple looking for someone to document the biggest day of their lives. They want to make sure they're getting their money's worth. They don't want to go with someone they don't feel good about. They want to feel good about who they're hiring. And if you are working for someone who works for a brand with a budget to create assets to market a product or a service, realize that those people are often putting their asses on their line, the job on the line, because if they fuck up a shoot, especially a big one with like a $50,000 budget, because they picked the wrong photographer, they're going to get fired. So in those scenarios, quality of portfolio isn't as important as just feeling good about who you're hiring, trusting them. What's their experience like? What are they like on set? Are they going to get along with everyone? Are they going to cause trouble? Are they going to be difficult to work with? Are they going to be stubborn? Are they going to lose their shit if things aren't going well? They want to work with someone who's going to be cool, who even if things aren't going as planned, can radiate confidence and comfort. All of that is way more important than the end product of the photos. People will remember you more for how you made them feel than the quality of the work that you produced. The theme here is putting yourself in a position to want to work with other people and build relationships. And for me, I always find that the less that I'm trying to sell someone, the less pressure that I put on myself to make a sale, to get booked, to get hired, the more genuine I'm going to be in my interactions. So the whole point is to build relationships where you don't feel like you're trying to sell someone. I am not the best at this. In fact, many of you are probably going to be better. But for those of you who are really struggling, this is just what's worked for me. And so here it is. It is much easier to maintain and preserve a relationship than it is to make a new one. So if you are lucky enough to have clients that you like working with, that pay your bills, that, for the most part, make you a working professional photographer so you're not in poverty, do everything you can to preserve those relationships. One thing you can do, say thank you and mean it. Like, I'm serious. Like, you would be surprised at how often this gets overlooked. And I don't just mean sending a thank you note when you send your invoice. I mean expressing real gratitude for their existence in your life. And you can do this many ways. You can reach out to people when they have nothing to offer you. That's really important. How are they doing? Hey, how was that ski trip? Oh, how was your kid's graduation? I know that might feel like ass kissing, especially if you don't mean it, but people like to feel special. And it's a good, I say cheap way to stay top of mind. I don't mean cheap as in like it's not valuable to the human experience that we all crave, but it doesn't cost you much. It doesn't cost you much to just reach out to people, offer some help. Hey, I remember you were struggling with this. Did that work out for you? Is there something I can do? It's not always about sales. And that's going to be the crux of this whole lesson, this whole thing, is that the less you focus on sales, on selling yourself, the easier this is all going to feel. So you can take it further. You can send thank you notes at Christmas time, handwritten, personalized notes. You can include some gifts. Obviously, many corporate clients have different rules on what kind of gifts they can accept because it's a conflict of interest. So always look out for that. But for the most part, there's nothing wrong with sending some baked goods or a bottle of wine to the office of your favorite clients. It's a gesture that's appreciated. It keeps you top of mind. This is something I struggled with for a long time. Like, I thought I was doing enough by just saying thank you whenever someone hired me and paid me. And I'm like, well, I'm being a decent human being. I'm showing gratitude, but you got to go a lot further than that. Now, extending that to what I said before, make a habit of reaching out to people, not just your clients, but people in your social network, in your sphere of influence. Reach out to them when you don't need anything from them, because that's going to be the easiest time to establish a genuine, authentic relationship. Because if you need something from someone, if you're actively trying to sell to them, that's going to come off. It's going to come off, especially for those of us who are just not the most socially gracious people. You're going to reek of desperation, or people are just going to feel it. They're going to feel the vibe, as the kids say. So the way to mitigate that is to just get comfortable talking to people when you don't need anything. And actually, that's the most comfortable time to do it. because it feels more genuine. There's less pressure on you to perform, and you stay top of mind. People will remember you, and this is a game of numbers. The more exposure, the more visibility you can have to people, the more chances, the higher the chances of your success are. Okay, great. So that's how you handle people that you already know. How can you meet people, build relationships with people you don't know? And I'm going to extend it to the same philosophy. Focus less on selling and focus more on being a valuable person, being a good person. And you can do this next tip with people you know or people you just met. Be a connector. Introduce people to other people that might interest them, whether they might be friends, whether they might be collaborators, whether they need someone to fix their roof and you had a good experience with the person who did yours. The point is that there's a lot less pressure when you're doing something good for someone than when you want something from someone. And there is nothing better. There is nothing people appreciate more than being introduced to someone that can help them. And if you build a reputation of being a connector of people, it's going to look good on you. People are going to think very highly of you. And eventually you're just going to be the guy that people reach out to. And that's always a good thing. Trust me. And it saves you a lot of tension because it's always easier to be the guy that people reach out to versus the guy who has to go out fishing. So if people are coming to you for whatever reason, you've already won. You're already at the top. That's a good position to be in. And again, it's so much easier. Like, if you're recommending someone who like my friend Alex, he's a fellow photographer, very talented. He's got a very good eye for street photography, knows how to tell stories with images. And he's just genuinely one of the best dudes I know. He will give you the shirt off his back if you need it. He's always there to lend a helping hand, always positive, doesn't have an ounce of hate in his body, doesn't talk shit about anyone. He's just a good dude. See what I'm doing here? See how easy that is? See how easy it is to talk about someone in a positive way when you actually like them. There's no pressure there. There's no awkwardness. There's no tension. It's easy and it doesn't cost much. So when you are talking to people, always look out for, hey, I know someone you would get along with, or I know someone who could help you with that. You do that enough times, you build a good reputation. Okay, fair enough. But how do you even start talking to people to begin with? Well, that's a good question. And I think it comes down to your personal lifestyle. And if you're like me, my personal lifestyle is very isolating. Even outside of my business, I don't do much interacting with other people. Like I said, I have friends, I have some family, but in my day-to-day life, I spend most of my time creating in my apartment or out shooting. And I don't have a traditional job, so I don't have the same opportunities for socialization that someone at a 9-to-5 does. But you can change that. This is something I'm trying to improve myself. Build a habit of talking to people just in your everyday life, whether it's the cashier at the supermarket, the security guard in your building, if you see the same people in your elevator in your building. If you just notice a certain like routine of familiarity with people, or whatever the excuse is, make a habit of acknowledging people, of saying good morning, of making small talk, because I think that's the thing that we miss out on most when we're not working traditional 9-to-5 jobs. It's that water cooler talk. It's that, how was your weekend? How are your kids doing? Oh, did you see the game last night? Did you catch, fucking LeBron in the fourth quarter? Didn't he choke, right? Like, that's the type of stuff that builds relationship and builds comfort with people, that like almost just common communal bonding. I understand this is like basic human decency. You're probably wondering like, why the fuck is he telling me to just be a basic human being? And if you're asking that, this probably doesn't apply to you. When you make small talk part of your daily practice, it opens yourself up. It makes it easier to practice it. And that small talk, I know it's so cringe. It's so cringe, but that small talk is how genuine human communication is formed. And that is the type of stuff that creates a presence of memory in people's head, an impression about you. And it's a good one. This guy cares. This guy's jovial. This guy's polite. And it doesn't cost you anything because you're not trying to sell. Like, there's no pressure to do it. You're just doing something that should probably feel good anyway once you actually do it. Trust me, it does. And we lack that in our industry. So, make sure you have opportunities to do that for yourself. And to take it further, develop hobbies that require you to be social. For example, I do Muay Thai kickboxing, and since moving back to Miami, I've been trying to find a gym to do that. That forces you to be social. That forces you to interact with people. It can be anything, a run club, whatever. I think you know what a hobby is. I don't think you need to tell me how to find one. Find something you're interested in that involves other people. That's how you build opportunities for yourself. And on top of that, you never know who in these hobbies, who you're going to meet at your run club, who might actually know someone or, work in a position where they might actually hire you someday. So it's a good, easy way to build a network. Again, that doesn't put too much pressure because you don't have to sell yourself. If someone asks out of natural curiosity, then you can say it and you can segue into a conversation. They might ask you for advice about something, and then that's your opportunity to shine and show that you're a valuable person. Create value. And I've already mentioned that by being someone who connects people, but you can take it a step further. Like this video right here is an example of that. I am creating something that I hope resonates with an audience. And I hope that people find value in it. And by doing that, I create an opportunity for people to reach out to me in comments and emails. And that's low pressure. I don't have to feel like a sleazy salesman writing cold emails, doing cold outreach, just kind of singing for my suffer, which is something I still do. In fact, I was doing it right before I started recording. It's just not always the easiest way to do it. It's hard. It's not playing the odds. It's like playing the slot machine. Yeah, you might get lucky, but most of the time people ignore you. This is a much easier way to build community, to build yourself up. And if you are seen as someone who is likable, relatable, who has people's best interests at heart and is always willing to lend a helping hand, I promise you, it is significantly more appealing. Collaboration. I know, it's tempting to think of fellow photographers, creatives as our competition. That's a very damaging way of looking at it. Even though it is true, they're not your enemies. They're just people who are trying to make a living as well. When you start getting into higher end work, higher paying gigs, commercial work, working for brands, working for big companies, they're looking for someone who can be part of a team. It becomes less about being a lone wolf, like artist with control over everything, the way you might be if you're like a headshot photographer. And it becomes more about like, can this guy work well within our system of doing things? So collaborating with other people is a low pressure way to do it, whether it's, working with a director and you're going to be a DP, being a gaffer, working with designers, just finding other creative, like-minded people to work with is just good practice for interacting with humans. Look, you never know where people are going to end up. Today, somebody might be a photographer. They might be your competition. Tomorrow, they might be a creative director who hires you. Today's intern can be tomorrow's marketing manager. And anybody you come across between now and then, whether they were a PA, a makeup artist, can put in a word for you. And very often, decisions about your reputation are made behind closed doors and you're not even aware of it. You don't know what people are saying about you behind your back. So you want to put your best foot forward. And to do that, give yourself the opportunity to shine. And not just in the quality of your work, but in how easy you are to work with. And oftentimes, these projects, which I'll touch on in another video, but these kind of collaborative personal projects can be the most beneficial in terms of creating work that you're actually proud of because you have more creative freedom. That's like a different benefit, but nonetheless, it is a benefit and it's something to consider. Moving on, another thing to consider is working with local charities. And again, the reason this is beneficial is because it's not a high pressure situation. Ideally, you would pick a charity that you are naturally inclined to gravitate to, something that's near and dear to your heart, something that makes you feel good participating in anyway. So it's going to come from a genuine place. You're not trying to sell them anything because you're not going to make any money. You're donating your time. And you know what? Most charities could always use photography or video services. They're always trying to create more awareness about whatever their cause is. Very likely they're going to find a place for you. Very often these charities involve pretty influential people. And if you can work with them, you have pretty much a green light to establish genuine relationships with these people, and they're going to remember you. And more importantly, like you can build relationships on a more intimate, personal level when it's not client vendor dynamics. Like you're just, at this point, you're just two people who are contributing your time to a common cause that you both care about. So again, something to consider. What does everything have in common? What is the main point I keep going back to? It's about making things easier, making the process of establishing relationships something you actually enjoy and something that's low pressure, because that's the difference between people like us, people like you, and someone who is more naturally inclined to get energized by genuine connections with people. I know personal friends, colleagues, family members who can walk into a bar and walk out with 10 new best friends. And it's genuine. Like they really, really love meeting people. They are genuinely interested in their stories and their point of views of the world and their experiences. And they feed off of that. And those are the type of people that have absolutely no trouble establishing relationships, building them, maintaining them. People like us, we got to do a little psychological MacGyvering. We got to fix it. We got to trick ourselves into building those relationships. And oftentimes the best way to do it is to make them feel like we're not building relationships or we're just participating in regular way of life that we would otherwise do. Here's the reality of it. I don't do it enough. I'm telling you to do this stuff in this video, and I know it's hard. I know you probably feel this kind of friction pulling you away from it. Believe me, I feel it too. I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you. I don't do it enough. I don't practice it enough. I have my moments, my days, my consecutive days where I don't want to talk to anyone, and I know I should send a follow-up email. I know I should talk to this former client who I haven't spoken with in 4 or 5 months. Like, I know I should, but I don't. But we have to, because the world is made for people who are collaborative, whether we like it or not. Relationships in this field are everything. And you really have to adopt that mindset. And it doesn't have to be as difficult or as stressful as you make it out to be. And if it is, look into that. Try to figure out why. I know in my case that there's a lot of childhood trauma to unpack, a lot of things that therapy has helped me. I won't get into it here, but I figured out where my social anxiety comes from. And even though I still struggle with it, I'm a lot better at it. And at the end of the day, I recognize that if I'm going to be in this business, if I'm going to be a photographer for a long time, I got to connect with people. And so